Hey guys, it's Bruce. Welcome to ConvoCourses podcast, and got a special treat for you guys today. I've got my mentor, Mr. Rob Rodriguez. Hopefully, he joins me. Okay, give me 2 minutes. All right, no problem. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. You guys, listen. Let me give you an update on what's going on with my job. Whole thing is going on with me getting a new job. So, So, first of all, writing's on the wall. It's time for me to go, and I've been pretty candid about what's going on. And I'm not saying anything bad about my previous company. They're a good bunch of folks. They took care of me, so I can't complain about that. It's just sometimes it's time to go. Sometimes it's your goals don't align with the company's goals. So that's why I decided to leave. So anyway, I told you guys, never burn bridges. Always stay cool with the relationships that you have at any organization that you have, regardless of the situation. Cybersecurity, IT as a whole is a small pool of people. You run into the same people over and over again. So, as much as possible, you don't want to burn bridges. And I didn't burn bridges, right? I made sure I didn't do that. So I have mentioned it a few times over the course of my time there that, I think I'm probably going to be leaving. Haven't really talked about it recently. I'm just doing the best, most quality work I can while I'm there, but it's coming. So how's it gone? I started putting out applications. I put out so far. I put out about 300. Right. I'm not playing around. Right. I'm using AI to pump out as many applications as possible. And I've noticed that it's really difficult. Like this market, I have to admit, has been more difficult. It's been difficult, but I managed to get a few interviews, and so I've knocked out one interview, and it went okay. I don't think I got the position, to be honest with you, but we'll keep going. I'll keep you guys updated on that. So I've got Mr. Rob Rodriguez, my man, my mentor, here with me today, and we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be just asking questions. So let me set this up first. So Rob Rodriguez is one of the most talented. I'm not exaggerating. This is one of the most talented IT professionals I've ever had the privilege of working with. We first worked at a SOC together. It was a huge environment with a lot of moving parts, and he was our subject matter expert for nearly all the tools that we had there. Imagine that. Like, we had IPSs, IDSs, all kinds of devices and stuff, and he was our subject matter expert. And now you have moved on, Rob, to being a cloud security architect. And so this is something I've been trying to get into. Well, cloud in general, cloud security. And so I just wanted to pick your brain about your profession and like, what do you do and things like that. So I'll take give you a couple minutes to introduce you to my audience. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I always love how you introduce me. I'm always humbled by that. And, from our time working together, from what I recall, you're pretty sharp yourself. So, if you think of me that way, look back at the mirror, buddy, because you're just as sharp and dedicated. And I appreciate that about you. A little bit about me. So I think, this. I was in the Marine Corps for 11 years. It's where I really got that's really where I started cybersecurity. And there was an event that happened that led me to becoming really passionate about cybersecurity. In short, I learned that loss of data could lead to loss of life. So that's a fun, interesting story. It's what led me to, eventually meeting you in the SOC and us making a difference together in that environment. And we've been doing that ever since. Since then, I worked at a company called McAfee, So many of you may have heard of it. No, I don't know John McAfee. He wasn't even associated with the company. But yes, I have been following what happened to John McAfee like everybody else. But I don't have any insights. And it is called McAfee, but you can pronounce it however you want. People call it McAfee, or one guy called it McAfee. So eventually I moved on. I did industry. I worked at an MSP for a couple of years, and now I'm finally at a cloud security company, a cloud security vendor, where I am a cloud security architect. And so in my role, I'll tell you a little bit about it, but in my role, I'm more on the pre-sale side. So there's different components, and we could talk about that. But what I do is I help customers understand if the tool that we sell, if that's going to solve some of their needs or some of their problems, and I'll help them understand how to use it to that end. So that's very generalized, but in a nutshell, that's what I do. So happy to be here, Bruce. Back over to you.
Thank you, sir. So my first question to you is, as a cloud security architect, what do you do day to day or week over week? Like, what's your day look like?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question because I get that question a lot. So I do mentorship on the side. I don't take on a lot of people because I just don't have time. But this is one of the most sought after questions that I get. So first, let me just distinguish what I do from what a cloud security architect does. In the industry, when you say cloud security architect, most likely you're talking about someone who works in operations. That means I work at a company, they need to protect their assets, and they hire a cloud security architect to figure out how to do that. So that is operational. There's another side where I work that is called pre-sales. And all that means is that day to day, what I do is I provide advice to existing customers on how to leverage their solutions to solve certain problems. I'll provide demos to existing and new customers who are interested in some of the products that we sell. And if they really want to get a chance to try out the products and maybe so-called kick the tires, we'll do what's called a proof of concept or proof of value to show we can meet all your requirements. We can show you the value of using these tools for your problems. And so day to day, it's more educational. I talk to customers and educate them on concepts, on stuff they didn't even know they had. A really common one is about this whole complicated concept called ZTNA, or Zero Trust Network Architecture. It's very, very complicated because there's so much information about it, and it's really rare that you find an article that says really brass tacks, this is what it is, it's these things, because everyone has their own spin on it. Right. So I'll get a chance to talk with customers, figure out exactly what's going on in their world, and if there's a ZTNA based solution that they need, I'll help them clearly understand what that means and what it could look like for them moving forward. So that's a little bit about what I do in my current role.
Nice. So is there any particular platform that you use, be it AWS, Azure, Google? Is there one platform, or is pretty much it depends on the client, I imagine?
Yeah, that's going to vary client to client. You'll see most organizations, I think, are going to use Amazon AWS. It's a really popular platform. It was among the first, if not the first, cloud service provider on the market. So it's very, very popular. And one of the things about AWS that makes it, continuing to make it really dominant is its ease of use. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can't just go in and just figure out and know it all in a day, but it makes sense. They have standards. It's really well organized and architected. And so AWS is a great place to start. Having said that, a lot of organizations are using Microsoft. For Microsoft, it's they have a solid platform too. I don't want to take away from that, but their approach is more about how they price and bundle things together. So they basically incentivize customers, like you're already buying Microsoft, Windows desktops and server licenses. Well, now you can only buy that if you also buy cloud services. So they kind of shoehorn you into buying their services. But a lot of customers seem to resonate with that because they do get discounts on the server and desktop licenses. So that could be significant for them. But if they have other operating systems like Mac OS or Linux, or maybe they're looking for better ways to reduce their spending with
Mhm.
Microsoft, they'll probably be resistant to it. So, but Azure is a really strong contender. They may be the top CSP or cloud service provider in the industry because of the way that they approach how to sell it. So they're a very, very strong platform. But most of my customers are going to use AWS. Very rarely do I see GCP, and when we do, even though Google has a solid reputation and they do have a solid platform, it's like speaking Greek, because once you're used to AWS, you then need a Rosetta Stone to go to
Right.
GCP. AWS and Azure, even though they have different names for
Yeah.
different components, like storage, for example, AWS calls it
Blobs.
S3 buckets. Yeah, Azure calls
Buckets.
it blobs.
Blobs. Yeah. Yeah. For Azure.
So as long as you know, like, these things are actually the same, they're just different names, it's really easy to like mentally map that out. But
Yes.
then
Yes.
GCP will have like projects, and you're like, what is a project? Like, I'm not trying to be a PMP here. So I don't see GCP as much, probably because it's not as dominant. Like, the way that Google approaches how
Yeah.
they sell is different from Microsoft, and also like the way that they talk about their technology and name things is so dramatically different and organized
Yeah.
than AWS and Azure. So, to answer your question, AWS seems to be the most dominant one that I see, but you have
Right.
to
Yeah.
recognize Azure is probably just as prominent.
Right. You're right. So because the market share for cloud, something I talk about here a few times, like just looking it up, the market share is like 30+% for AWS, and then it goes down to like 20 something percent for Azure, and it goes all the way down to 10% for Google, and then all the rest, like Oracle has a little tiny,
Oracle,
point.
IBM,
IBM, yeah, and then you get
Alibaba.
Alibaba, Tencent, they're down, they're in there somewhere. But AWS is like, man, they've got most of the market share. All right, so that brings us to my next question. So as somebody who's trying to get deeper into cloud, myself, I'm trying to get much deeper into. I'm getting deeper into it. What would be the thing that I should focus on first? Like, just to give you like what I'm doing right now is I took the most basic AZ900, which is cloud fundamentals for Azure, and then I took AWS CCP, and that's just to get myself. I'm not trying to like hoard certifications. I like the curriculum, so it walks me through the whole process, and then at the end, I'm like, to test my knowledge, I'll go ahead and take the test, right? So that's where I'm starting off. But where do I go from here? Like, what would you recommend that I do next?
That's a really such a good question. You've got a lot of good questions here today. So, all right, if you want to get started in cloud, there's a couple of different ways to do that. First is arming yourself with knowledge, and YouTube is actually a great way to do that.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you are on a budget. Just one channel that I go to from time to time. Let me see if I can remember. Maybe I have like two channels here. I think it's called Tiny Tutorials. It's playing videos here. I think it's Tiny Tutorials. The person that does that runs that channel, yeah, Tiny Technical Tutorials. And the person that runs that channel, she is also a professional cloud instructor at, I think Pluralsight, I want to say. Her bite-sized videos are so easy to follow along and understand. And if you're going to be technical, I would definitely recommend checking her channel out, because it's really simple to understand and to follow along. There's another one. I don't remember her name. I think it's Lucy, but she used to work at AWS.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. So there was one that I would watch pretty religiously, but I don't remember her name. I was trying to
Tech with Lucy.
Yes,
with Lucy.
That's her. So I watch a lot of her videos.
Love her videos because she talks a lot about how to get in the industry and
Mm-hmm.
about the certification paths and how to consider these things. Like, she really puts a lot of her passion, time, and effort into making sure that these videos make sense and there's a
Yes.
clear roadmap. So definitely check out her channel as well. So that's Tech with Lucy and Tiny Technical Tutorials.
All
Those two
right.
channels are a great starting point to arm yourself with knowledge. The second thing is having access to the cloud. This is so difficult to do because it's really scary. If you don't know cloud, you may have already heard about the outrageous bills that people rack up, like tens of thousands of dollars a month, and you don't want to find yourself in that situation. So, in that case, there are two things that you can do. One is learn about Docker containers, right? So, if you have a computer, maybe a gaming computer,
Excellent
or
advice.
even if it's an old computer, just install some version of Linux on it. It's really cheap and easy to do. And there's the thing about Docker containers is that you can run a container called AWS Stack, I think it is. I don't remember.
Another thing is, while you're looking that up, is that AWS and Azure give you about a year of free services. Now they're limited, but it's 12 months of free services as long as you don't go, like, I think they'll let you use their basic services because they've got like all these different services, in the once you get on the dashboard.
Yeah.
But you can't go to the most advanced ones, but you can use some of their more limited ones for up to 12 months for free. And then after that, they'll start to charge you.
Yeah, that's my next point. To finish up this point, if you're going to use Docker containers to practice or simulate AWS, there is a free container to use called Local Stack. And Local Stack is basically a fully functional AWS cloud service emulator.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really great. Now, it's not going to have the interface. I mean, I think you have to pay if you want to emulate the web interface. But if you're just doing automation and API type stuff to build, environments, it is a great way to practice safely in your own environment without
Mm.
worrying about racking up all those bills. So that's a
That's
great place to go.
That's solid advice. I've got a well before I go to my next question, I've got somebody comment and said, kind of matters what space you're in as well. Cloud security architects here in public space. If you're dealing with DoD, Microsoft Gov Cloud is the only option available.
Yeah. So, BM, thanks for that wonderful insight. Yeah, federal or public sector, especially in the US, does vary. Now, for what it's worth, it's not just Microsoft. I think maybe some organizations only go with Microsoft within the Department of Defense. But there was a big lawsuit, I think, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or so. I don't remember what it was called. I think Jedi was the name of the contract. But essentially, what it comes down to is there was a big fight between Amazon and Microsoft and even Google on who would be the cloud service provider for the US government. So all three of these platforms do have a regulated and certified environment for use in
Mhm.
the government. We call that certification FedRAMP. So if you're familiar with FedRAMP, you'll see that all three of these large service providers do support U.S. government. However, in many places, because there's such a Microsoft-focused perspective, you'll see that a lot of people just naturally align with Microsoft GovCloud. That is absolutely true. Thanks for
Absolutely. And then somebody piggybacked on what you said. Security experts said that he had a client rack up
yeah.
$160,000 by
No,
mistake. Oh
don't
man.
don't want to do that. Like yeah.
Yeah. Ouch.
So
Yeah, exactly.
we want to avoid that. So that's why I'm telling you about this stuff. So local stack is a great first step if you want to do things locally. The second step, what you mentioned, Bruce, is try the free tier trial. But that means you have to be really conscientious about what is in free tier, and that's not always clear. So you can do free tier if you're doing small projects, absolutely. But if you stumble onto something that you don't know how to undo, you could rack up 160K bill, and you don't want to do that. So you got to be really careful. The third thing that I would recommend, highly recommend, well worth the investment, is an investment with A Cloud Guru, now a company of Pluralsight. A Cloud Guru is a learning platform where they teach you all about different cloud technologies, security, implementation, automation, and it's amazing. The thing that I love the most about A Cloud Guru is that they offer what's called sandboxing. What this means is that you can go and spin up access to an AWS environment or Azure or GCP or even Oracle and test it for a couple of hours. And you never have to worry about the bill. You can test whatever you want for that period of time. And it's definitely helpful when you're trying to learn and get certified. And it doesn't come with that risk of that 160K bill that we had somebody mention earlier. So now the pricing, I think it's like $500 a month or something like that. I don't remember, but I would recommend waiting till like a time where there's a holiday. I got mine around Black Friday, which is closer towards a Christmas holiday, and it cost me like $265, I think. So great deal on it, and it's definitely worth it. So that is for 1 year of access, and that is like even the full price is completely reasonable and worth every penny because you have access to all these different cloud environments, and it's going to help you grow. So I can keep talking. I'm not promoting them. They don't pay me. I'm not trying to plug them. I'm just saying my experience has been overwhelmingly positive, and it's a great place to go if you want to learn about cloud and have a safe place to do that.
Wow, thank you, man. That's two awesome resources that I'm definitely gonna check out. And bonus was that Docker. So the more I'm learning about containers and stuff, the more I'm realizing how important it is to cloud and virtualization and stuff like that. So man, great insight. So my next question is about of all of the degrees, certifications, and experience that you have. I want you to rank like your top 3 that has been the most impactful in your entire career. Like from, and just to kind of give you guys some insight into this freaking guy right here. We're at SOC. I remember we had all these people had master's degrees. I came in with a CISSP and a CCNA and all this kind of stuff. I had all these certifications. And this dude ran circles around all of us. And from what I remember, you didn't have a degree. I don't think you did. I told you guys you're one of the guys I talk about all the time that didn't have a degree because people are, man, do I need a degree to get in this field? I'm like, no, man, I know a guy who didn't have a degree and ran circles around all of us, was educating everybody. He had people with master's degree, everything. And so anyway, so from all the stuff that you have, like what was the most impactful skills, experience, certifications that you got that were just like knocked the doors, opened up doors for you, it continues to help you maybe, what were those top 3 things?
Yeah, that's a really, really insightful question. All right. So to address the degree, let's just tackle that because that's an easy one. Do you need a degree? No. Simple. Longer answer is it can certainly help if you have nothing else. If that's a route that you're interested in learning, and that's a route you feel comfortable with and you get the most from, by all means, go for the degree. But if going for a degree is going to cost you more anxiety because of the debt associated with going to college or university, maybe you don't have to do that. So that's one perspective, and I'll tell you what you can do here in a little bit. Second is about certifications. I have the personal belief that most certifications are just a check in the box. I have experience getting certified, and man, I have a very unpopular opinion, but most certifications are trash, in my opinion. And it's not to to speak ill of any certification program over another. It's just, I feel like what most people do is they'll do a brain dump to check the box and get the certification, but have learned nothing. And I saw this happen with CISSP, where people would go for this certification. In fact, Bruce, when we worked together, we saw people going for the CISSP certification, wait for the results to come in, it would fail, and they'd just go back and continue to brute force until they got it and still learn nothing, even after months of retaking the certification. And it was because they had to do it for their job.
Yeah.
There was no interest. They just needed to check that box. So certifications are not always what they're cracked up to be. So what I do when I'm looking at certifications is I look at the value to me personally, not to the company that requires them. I look at the value to me. Am I going to learn something in this? So a couple of certifications that are worth having. One is cloud certifications. So whether it's Microsoft, Google, or Amazon, they have certifications that really test your knowledge. And in a lot of cases, if you're not familiar with how to do something, the practical aspect of it, you're not going to pass the certification. And so they do a great job of asking really good questions. They have great quality assurance. And personally, when I did my certification for AWS, I felt that it was valuable. And so I only did AWS, the cloud foundations. I eventually will go on to a solutions architect. So, I'm training and studying for that at the moment. But I do it because I'm getting value from it, not because the company requires it. The other certification track for cybersecurity is the SANS Global Information Assurance courses. And I think, Bruce, you've got certifications there too, as did I. So it is really good because the tests, most of them, I don't know if they changed this, but they're open book. So if you're doing a written test, written exam, open book, a lot of people say, well, then how do you learn anything? Because that's a real skill. Like when somebody comes to you in your job and they give you this problem, you need to go look it up. You need to open up the book and find an answer. You don't have to memorize it because that doesn't do you anything, but you do need to have the skill of being able to find an answer. And so open book to me makes a lot of sense, but don't be fooled. It's still not easy. You still have to have a sense of how to organize information and then find it in the book. So, I mean, it's still a very grueling exam. But the other aspect of the SANS GIAC certifications is that there's a practical aspect as well. Yeah. So you can actually write a paper of a concept. Like I wrote one on how to use scripts to, one, identify vulnerabilities, and two, how to use scripts to patch and mitigate those vulnerabilities. It was really fun. I learned a lot in the process. And the folks over at SANS all voted that it was valuable enough to include, and I was able to get my gold tier certification for GIAC, wow. And I'm really proud of that. So that's where you really can separate people from the folks who are just going to get the checkbox, which we still need that, but also those who are passionate enough to go and do the work and prove that they know what they're talking about. Like, to me, that says a lot. So, those are the type of certifications that I look at and look for. Now, I'll pause there for the certifications, but I want to get into like, how do you get to a point where you can show value to get into the industry? Let's see what questions we have here.
Oh, we got a whole bunch. Let me see.
Okay.
I'm gonna put them up on the board here that are relevant to what you're talking about. So Smooch says currently you don't need a tech degree with a YouTube and various avenues to learn. And then somebody said, Rookie said, I agree with what you're saying about certifications, Rob. Another one jumped in. Smooch says, professor certifications are not that relevant, like the CISSP, CISA, CRISC, CISM, but vendor-based ones like AWS, GCP, and SAP are great to have.
If I can comment on that.
Yes.
So I 100% agree. However, like, especially Bruce, I think you talk a lot about GRC. That's where stuff like CISSP, CISA, CRISC, CISM, yes, et cetera, that's where that becomes much more relevant. But if you're a tech head like me, yeah, those are less relevant, and vendor-based certifications are going to be more relevant. So, it's going to be a mix depending on what you want to do. But I'm talking from a cloud security perspective, which is usually tech heavy.
Yeah, great point. So I just to reflect on just to put all a bow on all this, man. Like I remember when we were at that SOC, I had all these certifications, and I had the CISP and all that stuff. I didn't have a SANS core. I don't have a SANS certification, but the value of it was on display because everybody who had one was running circles around us, and I'm
You
like,
can see it.
yeah, I was so impressed. So I started actually studying for one, and just the studying alone helped me out so much. That's why on this channel I always talk about how awesome SANS courses are because it's open book, it's more hands-on. There's other avenues to actually get the certifications. I just think they're extremely impressive, and all the people who I've known who had all those warrants, who had them and stuff like that, they're some pretty sharp guys, including Kazarian had one. It was just impressive. So, yeah, I have to agree with you. Those are marketable. CISP, CRISC, CISA. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're in GRC, super marketable certifications. How relevant are they to what you do, like to technical? I mean, it's it's very generic, So,
Yeah, so
um,
let's address one more thing, because like we were talking about public sector, and I don't know if it's still there or relevant, but 8570, right? DoD
yes,
8570 regulation, which
that's right.
is about maintaining certain levels of certification and competencies in
Yeah,
order to hold a role in information assurance. Um, CISSP is going to check that box. So if
yeah,
you're going to work in the U.S. federal government and possibly maybe either other nations, CISSP is absolutely critical. Whether or not you believe it's going to help doesn't matter. It is a requirement. So in those cases, yes, it's valuable.
yeah.
So you got to look at those factors as well.
There's other certifications that do really well in the government, like the Security Plus, especially if you're entry level. Larry says, but isn't the checkbox now basically being required by the industry to pass
Yeah,
resume scans? Unfortunately, that's how it's going. We got to play the game for some of us.
yeah.
And
So I want to talk about that too, Bruce. I'm so sorry to interrupt,
no,
but I'm
you're
so
no, you're
passionate about
good.
this. I know
This is
you are
great.
too.
This is
Yeah, because
great.
you talk about ATS as well from time to time.
Yes.
And yes, so Larry, spot on, great point. Those are not the organizations personally I want to work at if that's how they do business. That's how I look at it. There are so many companies out there. So I personally the way I find jobs is through networking. So, like, for example, Bruce and I know each other. And uh, if there's an opportunity, we'll inevitably talk about it. In fact, we just had a conversation recently. There isn't an opportunity, but we're checking in, right?
Right.
So networking is hugely important. People that you respect and people you admire, stay in touch. People that you want to help, stay in touch. It's all about networking. So networking is going to be a huge way on how to find the right jobs and get past the ATS automations, because I don't know what the heck's happened in the job market, but like this is killing job markets. And by the way, I think Bruce, I think if you're going to ever have another conversation about like applying for a job and some of those topics there, I'd love to come back and share some insights. I
Oh
don't want to
man.
take away from
Oh
your
yeah. I
conversation.
definitely. As a matter of fact, that's my next question. Is about the market. Like right now, I'm going through this, and some of my younger guys, my millennials, my Gen Z folks are asking me questions. They're like, I mean, not questions. They're saying, "Man, it is crazy out here. It's ridiculous. I can't get a job. What the hell's going on?" And before, I remain positive. I'm like, man, you just gotta get out there. You gotta. But now I'm experiencing it. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. It's bad. Like I think that my theory is that there's so many changes right now happening that that's making it hard. That's what it seems like to me. But what's your take on that, Rob?
Um, so I have just theories. I don't know what's happening. And just for what it's worth, I do have some insights as a hiring manager in my previous role, so I can see some of what's happening. So here's my theory. One is that there's a lot of automation. A lot of people are just mass deploying their resumes,
Yes.
thinking that the more I put my resume out there, the likely I'll get a job. So that's one. One, okay, yeah, it can be a point that you're creative enough to do that, but be more intentional. If here you are like 2 years into a help desk job and you want to grow, that's respectable. And I expect someone to do that, but don't go straight for a director or solutions architecture role. Like you're not qualified, right? Be more intentional. Two is there's a lot of scammers out there,
Yeah.
and I don't know what their motives are, but a lot of scammers are going to clog up the recruiting pipeline. And three, people who are desperate are doing Hail Marys and they're applying to, hundreds of jobs a week. And they're just, and I mean, I feel for them, but you're clogging up pipeline. So like in my case, when I was hiring for solutions architects, I had people from all walks of life. I had a CEO apply. Like, why are you a CEO applying for a technical role? I guess business is not that good. I had a homemaker apply who was a mother, and she was really creative with her resume. But as much as I love that creativity, you had to have qualifications. This is like a solutions architect role is a tough job.
Yeah.
So my theory is that because of all of this stuff happening, clogging up the recruiting pipeline, it's possible that companies say we need a better way to manage it, and let's put a gatekeeper in front of all of that, and we'll call it ATS. And all it's doing is it's harming your qualified candidates now. Not only the determined scammers and desperate folks that are not qualified or getting through, and people who are really qualified they're just like, well, I don't check this one box and suddenly I'm disqualified. That doesn't make
Wow.
any sense. So
That's
that's why I keep going back to networking. Like that's really big that you network.
Man, that's great insight, Rob. That's great insight, man. Especially for me going through this right now. I'm seeing this market. I'm like, damn, what the hell? What the hell's going? Because I'll get on. I just give you a specific example. Like I'll apply, looking at jobs. I'm like, man, this is a good fit for me. I'm hitting all the marks, all the boxes. And I look at it. It was released 2 weeks ago, and there's 100 applicants, over 100 applicants in a couple weeks, and I'm like, man, this too competitive. I don't know, like what's the point of me even applying? I mean, I'll apply for it anyway, but if there's already 100 applicants, what's the chances? And then they have to sort through all 100. That takes time. So
Yeah.
that's a
You
great
know what?
point.
When you pointed that out, the 100 resumes, it also made me realize remote work is also affecting this. So, instead of having local applicants or local nominees apply for a job, you now have the entire United States and sometimes a global market applying for the same one
Yes.
job. And that also has an impact to being able to get it. So network, network, network.
Man, great insight. Great insight. Let me pivot. We could do a whole hour on just that one
Yeah.
subject. We'll come back to it. We'll definitely come back because I'm going through some stuff right now. But I wanted to move on and ask you, because I get a lot of questions from people, young folks trying to get in, possibly go into the military. And we have Simplify. We have an ex-Marine here, a Marine, not
All right.
no ex-Marines. What would you say to a young person trying to get into the military? Would you advise them to go? Do you have any advice for anybody like thinking about it?
It's a journey. Everybody's journey is unique to them. And I hate to give such a cop out response, but here's what I would consider. So in my case, I was ready to grow. I didn't understand that's what I felt when I was 18. I was an idiot. But I knew, like, when I got an opportunity to go to the military, that I wanted to take it. It's not easy. There's going to be, like, you're going to go through a lot of challenges. Well, if you go to the Marine Corps, you're going to go through a lot of challenges. You go to the Army, maybe not so much. The military joke there. So it's really going to depend on what you're trying to get out of it and what you're willing to put into it. So what I would tell anybody, like my nephews or friends, anybody who comes up to me and says, hey, I'd like to join the military, but I don't know if it's a good fit. My advice is, one, figure out what you want. We could talk about that. I'll help guide you. But two, understand one thing: no matter what, no matter if you go to the military or not, what you put into it, the effort you put into to being your best, to actually getting something out and to giving back in return, what you put into it is what you'll get from it. So if you expect to show up and just take, like, a lot of my friends initially joined one of the services just for the college benefits, the education benefits. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but never put anything back into what they did. And consequently, that same mentality of like, just give me everything, it led to them being in dead end careers where nobody wanted them, because literally their resume would say, yeah, what are your accomplishments? And it would just say, learned this, went to that course, got this certification. And it's heavily emphasized on education. Not a bad thing, but that's all they brought to the table was, I want more education, but they didn't show what we're doing with that education. So
Right.
going back to the military thing, same concept. What you put into it is what you're going to get out. So if you're willing to put in the effort and willing to put in the work, it could be a viable path. But learn how to negotiate a role. Like if you go into the military and let's say you get an administrative job just processing paperwork, that's okay too, but it's probably not going to get you into an IT career. So you have to be a little intentional and specific about where you want to go in the military.
Right, right. What are you going to put in? I know that one of the big lessons that was a huge lesson for me in the military. I was not going in as a patriot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I went in because I wanted to travel. I needed a job, but what I found was what's crazy is how much I learned. I learned going all over the world and saw so many different walks of life. That was amazing. So many different parts of the world. And there was one time I was in Afghanistan, and I realized that, which I don't want to get political or anything, but one thing I realized was it wasn't about the politics. It was when you got there and you were in a war in a dangerous place, you realize it's about protecting the person next to you. It's kind of like it's a corny line that comes from Black Hawk Down, where the guy says that in that movie, right? And that is so damn true. When you get there and you're in a place where it's dangerous, you realize I need to protect this person next to me, and that gave me something that I couldn't get from a book, that I could never get from the civilian world. It gave me a whole different perspective, along with all the amazing people that I met along the way who are completely different, like a completely different perspective on life and everything. It changed my worldview. It changed me. Just realize when you go into the military, it's going to change you. Like you will not be the same. You will not walk out as the same person that you were, regardless of your political, religious philosophy, whatever you believe. It will change you, especially if you don't go in with an intention. And hopefully change you for the better. If you go in with an intention, it'll change you, I believe, for the better. So, let me see. What other questions do we have here? Oh yeah. Okay. So, Rob, I get a lot of questions about of people uh, who are in the government sector and in the commercial sector. What are the differences that you've experienced between those two?
Woo, that could be its own hour too. I'll simplify. Okay. In general, government is going to be more focused on regulation requirements, right? So a lot of box checking because there's constant audits. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
Uh, while customers have regulations to adhere to as well, especially if you're retail, for example, you have to adhere to PCI requirements. And if you're a hospital, you've got HIPAA. So there's going to be some of that in the enterprise side of things too, in the private sector. But there's a difference. One is on the private sector, decisions can be made much more quickly. So if something isn't working out, like, I mentioned proof of concept earlier. On the private sector, they'll do a proof of concept, but they'll do this with multiple vendors and see which one meet their requirements. Then they'll look at other things like costs and savings. They'll look at what the value is. They'll look at, do I need to hire more people, or can I, take the existing people and redirect where they spend their time, because I'll save more time with certain solutions. So there's a lot more like intentional thought about the efficiency of the business. Whereas in the government, it's all about the specificity of a contract and
yeah,
the regulations that we have to adhere to. And sometimes cost is a factor as well. But it's much more political, I think, in my opinion, on the government side than it is on the enterprise side. But having said that, it's a different type of politics. So personally, after 20 years of working now I'm not retired, right? I got out of the Marine Corps at 11 years, but I did contracting work for another, 8 or 9. So after about 20 years of working in government, I can tell you it got old. It was just repeating of the same thing. And for me, I wanted to grow, and I felt like I did a lot to make a difference, but it was time for someone else to take a torch. So I mentored and trained as many people as I could. And then I came over to private sector, and I've been growing ever since, and I'm really happy. So for me personally, moving over into private sector was really good. And I know a lot of people say having a clearance makes sure that you can have a job. In today's economy, it may not be as true. We saw the whole, layoffs with Doge, that have affected a lot of people, clearance or not. So, but the thing I found with holding the clearance is that it inevitably brings you back to federal. So even in my current role, a lot of times people will be like, "Can you help out on the federal?" And I'm like, somebody else. I can advise that person, but somebody has to own it. Do not want to own that anymore. Been there, done that. I'm happy where I am. So
wow, man. All right, let me answer this. I've got a whole bunch of folks talking to us here. Let me see. Got a few comments here. And I'm gonna go to TikTok. I'm not ignoring you guys. We just had to answer some questions here. Let me just read through a couple of these.
E-Free. That's a funny name, but do we know each other?
Okay, I've got Sergio says, I heard AWS certs are free, but couldn't confirm. Do y'all know if that's true? No, I don't think AWS. They're about $100. Like the lowest one is $100. They might have certificates that are free.
Yes, they have a training platform. It's free. I've been through it. It's not bad, but it's so dry. So dry. And I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy. So if you consume information easily just by reading stuff and it just makes sense to you, it's a great path. Their AWS learning path. It's fine. But if you need like practical hands-on, or you need someone to show you how things work, that's where stuff like Pluralsight and the Cloud Guru come into play. They'll be a better fit.
I'll definitely check out Cloud Guru. Smooch over here on TikTok says, are you on both platforms? He says, he says, AWS Skill Builder is a good place to start with the technical skill building.
Skill Builder. That's another good one.
Builder, yeah.
Yeah, great call out.
Somebody asked, is a CCSP okay? That's the ISC2 Squared's implementation of cloud, right? The certification of cloud.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. I haven't taken that one. I would say, like, if you look at the synopsis or description for it and you feel like that's a good fit for you, sure, it's okay. If a company requires it, that's okay. If a company's hiring for a cloud person and they're government, that's probably going to appeal to them. If they're a private sector, that could also appeal to them, but it's more likely that a vendor cert is going to be more lucrative. Just my opinion.
Okay, another question here. JD says, do you think AI-specific risks are being taken seriously by most security teams? I'll let you start with that one.
All right. No, can you say that one again? What kind of risk?
Says JD says, what? Oops, wrong one. I got a whole bunch popping up here.
Yeah.
Do you think AI-specific risks are being taken seriously by most security teams?
Yes. Oh, well, okay. Yes and no. So companies are definitely taking it seriously. In fact, in my own company, we have solutions around providing safeguards around AI misuse. And we are definitely having a lot of conversations. So companies are definitely taking it seriously. Now, is the SOC taken it seriously? That's a different question. And the answer is I don't know. I hope they are, but a lot of times there's resistance to change. And SOCs can be so overwhelmingly busy and stressful that it's
Yeah.
really hard to introduce a new technology or threat like AI, because that's a big one. So I would say there's going to be a long runway before we see a SOC actually start taking it more seriously. But for those who are already doing that, good on you. For those who aren't, there's some runway there that you need to work on.
Yeah, I know that there was recently a hack with McDonald's had a McDonald's has an AI assistant that was helping to hire people, and it got hacked, and then the LLM got hacked, and they found that the password was 1 2 3 4.
Yeah.
Uh, look it up. It's crazy. It's wild. All right, let me see. Let me see here. E says a 1MEF.
Yeah, one F.
What the hell? This
All
this
right.
is this is a an officer in the Marine Corps.
Yes. Yeah. So
Can
maybe
you
we were
more on
out
that?
in Iraq together. Blue Diamond was in Iraq.
Yeah, man, Marines is a small world right there.
Yeah. Love it. I love it.
Let me see more comments and questions. Um,
Yeah, we talked about that one already.
yeah, we already talked about that one. Smoosh says yes, I'm on both platforms. Security expert says CCSP is basically CISSP for cloud. I don't know that it has the same, or does it? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if it has the same level of respect yet, but maybe. I mean, I see they're really good at marketing these certifications, so they might get there. ISC squared is no joke with
I
marketing.
mean, IC squared, regardless of my opinion, they are reputable. And
Yes, that's
so
what I mean.
it can't hurt, but I don't know if it's really going to convince someone that you're an expert in cloud security. So that's why vendor certs are so lucrative, because you really have to know what you're doing. So there's a lot more trust in those certifications.
Okay, BM says, where do you see AI coming into play for security architects? Is your experience? I'm currently working with Copilot, but more from an auth-in slant. Any practical use cases?
Yes. So I use AI constantly. So, one, from a consumer perspective. So, one of my favorite quotes: I would have written a shorter letter, but I did not have the time. What that means is that if I'm going to speak in terms that are easily understood by others and they make sense, I have to spend a lot of time crafting that message, especially in the email. A simple email that looks like it took 5 minutes to craft may have actually taken me an hour, because I got to think, what's their frame of mind? What's the context? Do I have my emotions that I need to, like, regulate, go walk and get a coffee? So it could take me a while just to craft the right message. Same goes for planning, because I might have all these distractions. I got Slack pinging off. I got phone calls I got to answer. I got a webinar I got to join. And here I am in the middle of planning, and I'm going to forget that train of thought every time I come back. So AI is absolutely critical to how I'm leveling up in my own role, because now I can get to these outcomes much more quickly. I have the ideas. I pipe them into my own, because I built my own AI server. So I pipe in my ideas and thoughts, and I'll say, hey, give me, an organized perspective here. Maybe give me 5 categories and subcategories that align with this, or maybe give me a lessons plan. I will ask AI to organize the data. And then from there, I've reduced my workload tremendously. And I can use that organized data and then add to it or rearrange it, or now I'm ready to do some actual work. So from
Yeah.
that perspective, I use AI every day just from that. And you can use it for any variety of ways. You can ask it, give me 10 AWS exercises that allow me to pass the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. That's a great question to ask. So you can absolutely use it from consumer. And there are other things too, but in interest of time, I think we can save AI for another topic, because that's a really big one.
Yeah,
Great
that
question
is
too.
huge.
Great
That's
question.
huge. Let me see more questions here. Okay, let me get to Larry. Larry, thanks for the $20, man. I really appreciate that. It says, has Rob dealt with pay disparity with changing positions, industries? How does a government employee, one with qualifications, switch from the private sector? Um, how does it differ? Okay, maybe I'm reading this wrong.
Basically, if you're in public sector, how do you get to private sector? Like what to expect?
Gotcha.
That is a great question,
This dude
Larry.
asks amazing questions.
That is such a great question. I love that question because I went through this exact issue when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, and I didn't know, how to like evaluate myself. We don't have enough time to tell that story, but I would love to share it. The short answer is here's what you look for. One is go to a place like Glassdoor.com, and look at reviews, look at roles similar to what you want to get into, and look at what people are offering to pay. So that gives you a sense of where the market is. Second, go to another website called levels.fyi. That's more tech centric. So like developers, solutions architects, cloud engineering, all of that. And look at what people are reporting they're getting for pay. And it'll give you a better sense on like years and location and, specific job titles. And that'll give you a sense of like where you can negotiate to. Just remember, it's going to be medium, meaning that sometimes you'll come in lower, sometimes you'll come in over. And third, mostly important for people who are retired from the government, especially if you're retired from the military, please do not let anybody consider your retirement as a way to augment the compensation that they offer you. So as an example, let's say your retirement is, I don't know, $60K a year. I'm just using a number. And a position that you want is worth $100K. Don't let somebody offer you $45K and say that's a good deal. You're cheating yourself. Your retirement is something you earn for your service.
That's right.
And so if that role is worth $100K, that's what you negotiate. That's what's fair. They should not consider your retirement as part of that. And if they do, that's not a company you want to work at. Just my personal opinion.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we've been talking for about an hour, man. This was awesome. Rob, we got to do this again, man.
Oh man, let's do it. I can do this every day.
Shit, this is great, man. All right, so I'm gonna keep this one to an hour, guys. Man, thank you so much, Rob, for joining us, man. I really appreciate your wisdom. It's your perspective. You have a unique perspective that I really like. It's like old times, man. We still didn't talk about all the crazy stuff we saw at the site. I would love to talk about that. We got some crazy ass stories from that. I don't know how much of it we could put on public, but
I'll say it. I don't have a clearance anymore, so I'll say it without putting anyone at risk.
All right. Absolutely. All right, guys. I'm gonna cut it here. Thank you guys for your great question, Larry. Thank you for that $20. Rookie, thank you for your donation. I appreciate you guys. That's it. I would like to have Rob back on here at some point. Rob, do you have something else?
Yes, I want to say first, Bruce, thank you so much for bringing me on. I absolutely love these conversations with you. It's like old times, and I value our time together. And for the audience, you guys are amazing. I love your interaction. I love the questions. These are amazing questions, and I'd love to do this again. So hopefully we'll see you again. Take care, everybody.
One last question. Somebody said, Rob, do you put out content?
Not yet. Everybody asked me that question. Not yet, but I'm working on something. So
all right, awesome, man. You got to let us know, man. I'm hanging on by a thread with that one. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. Later, Rob.